Greetings, everybody, and welcome to the Mio on MMA podcast, talking about UFC 317, headlined by Charles Oliveira and Ilia Topuria, with a co-main event for the UFC flyweight title between Alexander Pantonja defending against Kai Kara-France. The main event is for the vacant lightweight title, with Islam Makhachev moving up to 170, which seems to be the current trend at the moment, because, of course, Topuria was the 145 champion, the featherweight champion, and is moving up in weight as well. So this whole shift up, and I don't really get it. It's kind of unprecedented to have that kind of thing happen simultaneously, but it is what it is. This fight will be taking place in Paradise, Nevada, which is basically Las Vegas, at the T-Mobile Arena, and it'll be happening tomorrow, June 28th at 6:30 Eastern Time. So we have a 12-fight card, and I would say top to bottom, one of the better cards the UFC has produced recently. There's only one fight that I'm actually kind of unhappy about the booking of, and I say that well, actually perfectly looking forward to the fight and thinking it will be very, very entertaining. It's just not what I would have done with either guy. Actually, two fights. But they're both good fights. I just think that the booking is somewhat flawed. And then in terms of throwaway fights, there's that Jackson McVeigh, Christopher Ewart fight, which is really, really relying on Jackson McVeigh actually being good without any actual proof that he's good, because he's coming from the regional scene and has beaten largely poor competition. So there is that problem. And I'm not really looking forward to Jonta Denise versus Alvin Hines. It's a heavyweight bout. I don't really think much of Hines, giving that away. And Denise is an interesting, I don't want to say prospect, because for one thing, he's 34 years old. Actually, that's the predominant thing. But he comes in with a really solid kickboxing background, and theoretically could be very, very good. It's just, I don't know if he has the time to necessarily develop into the Mirko Crocop of Brazil, which is an oversimplification, of course, because he doesn't fight like Crocop does, but you know what I mean. That's the greatest transition kickboxing to MMA that we've ever had. I guess you could, at least at heavyweight, I guess you could argue Israel Adesanya, Poatan obviously as well, but no, I guess really you got to go with Poatan. So I guess the second coming of Poatan would be Denise. But anyways, let's get into the usual rant here. I always say this before every video. I'm going to talk about betting odds. I'm going to talk about what I'm betting on. I'm going to talk about breaking down fights in a manner of information you could use to place bets. But I do not believe that betting on MMA is in any way, shape, or form a path to financial freedom. This is not something you should be dropping 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 grand on. Do not do that. It is something just to add a little bit of extra spice of life. Bet what you can absolutely afford to lose. Do not be betting next month's rent on this kind of stuff. And let's get into this. So in the main event, like I said, we have Charles Oliveira versus Ilia Topuria for the UFC lightweight title. We have Topuria as the favorite, minus 420 to minus 455. We have Oliveira at plus 320 to plus 333. I think that's a little bit wide, given that Topuria is coming up and his experiences at lightweight have not been tremendously positive. Yes, he did beat Jai Herbert in his last foray, and really only foray that really means anything at lightweight. But I think people really need to kind of remember that while he knocked out Jai Herbert and had a good time, that first round was it was kind of ugly. 1-for-4 on takedowns, outstruck 47-23. All of these things, there are a lot of problems for Topuria coming up a weight class because he's 5'7". The reach is going to be a problem. The range is going to be a problem long term. There's also the fact that a lot of what he did at featherweight, well, it was very technical and very good, and very textbook. He is a fighter to look up to. At the same time, there is the fact that he got away with some things by being an exquisitely powerful and explosive athlete. And at 155, he's going to be fighting people that are 10 to 15 pounds bigger, generally a little bit taller, and that's going to make a big difference. Now, am I picking him here? Yes, I am, because almost everything I listed there is just not really a Charles Oliveira thing. When it comes to fighting at range, Charles Oliveira, he is a tall dude, 5'10", 74-inch reach. So he's got 5 inches of reach and 3 inches of height on Topuria, but he doesn't really ever effectively utilize that. Like, there are some range tools he has, the body kick particularly, the front kick to the body that he likes to use. He has a jab. Like, he has all of those building blocks, but he's always been fundamentally not a good range fighter. I've always suspected it's like a vision thing, but there is the fact that he gets clonked out there at range a lot, and his solution to getting clonked and not being super durable eventually just became to embrace chaos, embrace aggression, embrace things to weaponize the clinch and hit things in transition, and wrestle, obviously. So the unfortunate thing is, while he has the frame to exploit the lack of reach, the lack of height of Topuria, he is in all likelihood going to have to / want to come inside anyways. So that's a limited concern with this particular matchup, even though it is a concern going forward. Still, we have the issue here that he is going to be big. He is going to be probably the biggest guy Topuria has ever fought outside of... I don't know, is he bigger than Jai Herbert? I know he's shorter than Jai Herbert and doesn't have the reach of Jai Herbert, but I suspect he might actually be heavier. So there is that question of, okay, Ilia Topuria used to be a good wrestler, used to be a good grappler, and he probably still absolutely is. But what is the highest level of physicality we've actually seen that work against? And the answer is kind of low. It's like Yusuf Zalal. So if Oliveira goes out there and does put the wrestling on him and does make him carry his weight and does make him deal with the transitional offense that he likes to utilize and the clinch, how good does that go for Topuria? So that's a major question. That's why I do still think that the odds are too wide. But I have to go with the cleaner boxing of Topuria and the fact that Charles Oliveira, he is a kill or be killed type of fighter. There is a remarkable few decisions on his record. It is, one of them is quite surprising because I'm always kind of like amazed about two particular fights, which is the Tony Ferguson fight going the distance, and of course the second Michael Chandler fight going the distance. That to me is a bit insane. It's a bit weird. It's a bit strange that like those two fights actually went the distance. But aside from that, it's let's see here. Somehow going the distance with Jeremy Stevens back in 2014. That's also a bit of a weird one. And then there's a couple of like regional ones that don't have a result posted on Tapology, so I don't know. Maybe they did go with the distance, and I they're fights I've never looked up. And then in terms of losses, it's like to Frankie Edgar and to that's literally it. And Armin Tsarukyan. And of course, there is the fact that Tsarukyan, who has a lot of the similar limitations to Topuria in the sense that he is a 5'7" lightweight, although bigger. I do think he is much bigger, and I'm looking forward to that fight. By the way, the asterisk on this fight is the fact that it should be Tsarukyan versus Topuria, not Oliveira. But we'll talk about the asterisks on the other title fight as well. That they're very compelling matchups without being ones that while having stumbling blocks, I guess. So yeah, I gotta go Topuria, the better boxer, the more prime guy. The guy who has looked to be at the apex of his game, and Charles is unquestionably on the way down. Charles has always had some durability questions. He's been hurtable, and that is why I have to pick Topuria by TKO. But it really is not going to surprise me if Oliveira goes out there, just be too big. And I don't know. I don't really have a comment on the whole, should Topuria be at 145? I don't know. Everyone's physical body chemistry is a little bit different, and the difficulty of a cut it's going to vary time and time again. What I will say is that he does not have traditional lightweight size. He is going to be small at this weight class, both in terms of height, reach, and just raw weight. All of these things are going to be a disadvantage for him. But we'll see how it goes. I mean, he's still good enough that looking at the lightweight rankings, there are very few people that I'm like instantly taking over him. Like pulling up the UFC rankings here real quick and looking at 155 for a hot second here. Who am I picking like absolutely over him? There's really no one. Like I'd probably gun to my head right now pick Armin Tsarukyan to beat him. But I would pick him to beat Oliveira. I would pick him to beat Gaethje. I'm sorry. I love Justin Gaethje, but I would pick that. I would pick him to beat Poirier, because I think at this point, let's ignore Poirier because he's on the verge of retirement. I'd pick him to beat Dan Hooker. I'd pick him to beat Gamrot for sure. I'd pick him to beat Paddy Pimblett. I'd pick him to beat Beneil Dariush. So, like, there's not really a lot of stuff here. Like, it's basically, I would pick him to lose to Arman Tsarukyan. And the other question would be, like, someone like a Grant Dawson who could just kind of grind on him and make things, like, very, very dull, maybe. And just, like, weaponize size. But, like, even Grant Dawson fought at 145, so I guess he can't really be... I don't know. Can he be that big? I don't know. He always seems too big. Like, him fighting at 145 always just seemed like an absolute mistake. So swapping on down to the flyweight title fight between Alexander Pantoja and Kai Kara-France, KKF. We have Pantoja as the favorite at minus 235 to minus 265. We have plus 194 to plus 215 on Kai Kara-France. Obviously, I understand the betting odds there because Kai Kara-France has lost to Pantoja in the past. It was on The Ultimate Fighter Season 24, which was, all things considered, probably the best season of TUF ever in terms of like the talent, because of course you had Pantoja and Moreno who became champions, and you've also got Kai Kara-France and man, I'm just gonna read the full cast. TUF 24, please give me the full cast here. Tournament of Champions. So you got Tim Elliott, you've got Brendan Moreno, you've got Damasio Page, Eric Shelton. Now Shelton didn't really turn into anything, but he had like promise. Ogakubo's doing really good things over in Japan right now. Terrence Mitchell. But then you have Pantoja, you have Matt Schnell, you have Kai Kara-France. It was a invigoration that still to this day impacts the flyweight division really, really, really sharply. I mean, case in point, we have two alums fighting for the title. That being said, that was a long time ago, 2016. And I do believe Kai Kara-France has changed a little bit. Kai Kara-France, when he was coming up, was very, very easy to put on the cage and to out-wrestle. And to be made passive by the threat of wrestling. And I think he's better about that. Like, all of those things are still there. I still think that there are some aggressive, bad tendencies of him as a scrambler and a wrestler. There is still some lack of cage awareness where, yes, you can put him on the cage. But there is... It's better. It's all there, but it's better. And then for Pantoja, he's also improved because at the time of that fight, he was really just kind of a wild man who would just overhands and takedowns, basically. And low kick. But Pantoja's become better. Like, there's actually a jab there. There's actual combinations as a boxer. There is different intros to the pocket and to the wrestling game that were not present in 2016 in his game. So he's made significant improvements, and that's why he's got the belt, because the Pantoja of TUF was not going to be flyweight champion. To be clear, no one on that cast was going to be flyweight champion in their current iteration. They just weren't. Maybe Tim Elliott, I guess, could get someone on their bad day. In fact, he almost did take the belt off of Mighty Mouse. But long story short, as much as I think that both of these guys have improved, I think the things that got Pantoja the win are still actually there, because I think Pantoja's improvements kind of keep pace with Kai Kara-France's improvements in those regards. Kai Kara-France will probably hit him clean at various points because he's one of the few like legitimately impactful strikers at flyweight in terms of landing good shots. Pantoja is, however, ungodly tough. And I just assume that because of Pantoja's lack of height and reach, not necessarily in this matchup, but in the overall context, he's never really developed a game that says no to wrestling and clinch work. He's never had the tools to do it. He's learned to navigate those situations better, but he still ends up in them. And if you're going to end up in them with Pantoja, I think Pantoja will score some takedowns. I think Pantoja will rough you up in the clinch. I think Pantoja will show you the durability, the grind, and the toughness to get this job done. Now, what is the asterisk behind this fight? By the way, I'm picking Pantoja by probably submission. I think at some point he just gets on Kai Kara-France's back and chokes him. But the asterisk here, of course, is the fact that Kai Kara-France is not exactly in a great place in terms of recent record. He has lost 2 of his last 3. Now, granted, I thought he beat Amir Albazi. I think a lot of people thought he beat Amir Albazi. But, like, he hasn't been on a winning streak since 2022 and he's getting a title shot. And that's kind of a problem because the flyweight division has always been treated as this redheaded stepchild of the UFC titles. And if he wins the belt, my God, will MMA social media be absolutely ungodly insufferable. Because it'll be, see, I told you, flyweight, actually not all that good. I mean, there are people out there that are legitimately, like, complaining about Alexander Pantonja having custom shorts for this fight. Number one, allow me to put this bluntly, I think that anyone who main events even a fight night card should have custom shorts. I understand that because of the way the shorts are and the apparel deal and so on, that there's not going to be everybody getting their individual custom gear. That those days are past. I miss those days, but those days are past. And the problem, and that's a problem, obviously, that's going to lead to the fact that we are going to be looking at samey stuff a lot. But if you're in the main event, and again, I don't care if it's an Apex card, they can do custom shorts for you. And if you're a champion, you damn well can get some custom shorts. Damn well. I have no idea why that's a complaint. I have no idea why that has become a talking point. They were, it's not just a Pantoja thing. They were, who was it? There was somebody else, and I'm blanking on it. It was a recent main event where it was the same thing. Why does this person gets custom shorts? It's like, they're in the main event, my dude. I don't understand. This is a co-main event, but like, that should be the case. I don't know. The UFC has managed to condition people to like accept only very few stars at any given time, and it's kind of sad. Brandon Royval versus Joshua Van. Now, this is a short notice fight. I do not like this fight because of the 3-week nature of Joshua Van's last fight where he made weight and had a very tumultuous fight with Bruno Silva. As a result, I do not like this. I do like the matchup with that removed. I think it's an appropriate test for Van. It's a challenging fight for Van. And I think that's shown in the betting odds too, where you can get both of these guys at underdog odds. Royval plus 110 to minus 125. And Van plus 105 to minus 134. So I think the betting, they definitely see that this is a very, very, very competitive, well-matched technical fight. The problem just is that 3-week, the short notice plus the 3-week turnaround. But anyways, I am picking Joshua Van. Now, the reason is, yes, I expect Royval's reach and length and volume to give problems to Van early. It gives problems to basically anybody. And if you look at Van's fights, the first round is always the shakiest. I mean, like even the Felipe Bunez fight, for example, was one where he had a tuning phase. It's almost like a Peter Yan type thing, a little bit. And he's got to find his reads and get things going and get his counters going, and particularly without a proper camp, I imagine that's going to be a problem. I'm ready for that. I'm ready for him to lose the first round. However, there is the fact that Royval is very defensively porous. And while Royval can be dangerous, it's with like awkward angles and knees and elbows and that kind of thing. It's not with his boxing. And if Van can navigate that and avoid some of those awkward spots, he should be able to find homes for his counter game, his body shots, because Royval is very, very vulnerable to the body. And he himself works at a very high pace. Like, that's the thing. Royval often wins by just outpacing people. And I don't actually think you can outpace Van, at least past, like, the first 3 minutes of the fight. So, picking Van, not worried about a takedown threat from Royval, because it's not really there, and get the job done. But, obviously, the late notice is a problem. Obviously, the 3-week turnaround is a problem, and I could very much see Van coming out and just looking kind of flat. And I could also see Van coming out and like just having problems with this type of matchup. So that's also on the table. And then we have Beneil Dariush versus Renato Moicano, and Moicano is the favorite, minus 115 to minus 162. Dariush minus 108 to plus 136. And at the end of the day, I have to say this fight is very, very easy. There is a problem, and that is that Dariush has looked, well, he's lost 2 in a row, and he's been crushed 2 in a row. And he's never been super durable. So whenever picking Dariush, there is that problem. There is the key fundamental issue that, well, he has a technically well-structured, well, not even well-structured game, winning game, we'll put it that way. That there is a physical fragility to him that is obviously a bit of a problem. And could Moicano highlight that? Maybe. But Moicano is not a hard puncher, not a particularly hard one. And he's a guy who traditionally has to grapple to get the W. That he has to impose his grappling game on somebody to do things. And you don't win doing that against Beneil Dariush. I mean, you can. Charles Oliveira, Arman Saryukian to a certain degree both did that. But they did that as guys at the top of the game in terms of offensive grappling and the ability to really make some chaos happen as well. Like, this fight more resembles the Carlos Diego Ferreira fights or the Mateusz Gamrot fights, or and for Moicano, tongue-tied, more closely represents the RDA fight that he lost to a very past his prime RDA. So at the end of the day, I actually think it's quite easy that Dariush, the underdog, picks this one up, actually. Just because it's a style that he has won before. It's a style that Moicano has lost before. Either way, we're going to get probably some kind of insane post-fight, because with Dariush, you have the Christian, Iranian, Persian deal, which, given the current political climate, could be interesting. We'll just put it that way. And Moicano is, of course, like a slightly insane alt-right libertarian rabbit hole guy. Whatever he's currently on about, he'll probably talk about. So yeah, I'm gonna go with the underdog there and pick Dariush. Will I be surprised if he just gets overwhelmed, gets hurt, and gets finished? No. That's a part of picking Dariush against anybody, though. Like, stylistically, this is a fight that he should win. Stylistically, because what Moicano brings to the table is stuff that he still historically is quite good at dealing with. I would like to complicate that fight a little bit more because I like both guys, but it's not really that complex. It's really, really hard to employ a grappling heavy game against Dariush, and even if you succeed in it, he's a very good grappler. And on the feet, Moicano just is not dangerous enough to make Dariush pay for some lackluster and over-aggression in his own striking. Kind of like a Charles Oliveira, actually. Moving on down, we have Peyton Talbot versus Felipe Lima. And this is a fight that I don't like. And it's not that I don't think it's going to be entertaining. For one thing, I think Felipe Lima is allergic to an unentertaining fight. And Peyton Talbot is a very, very interesting prospect. What I don't like about it is the fact that we're coming off a Talbot loss to Ronnie Barcelos, a fading physical presence with a heavy wrestling game. And we're putting him in there with a guy who brings nonstop pace, forcefulness, and wrestling to the table. It feels like there needed to be a bigger step back confidence moment for Peyton Talbot. And we didn't get that. And that's why he's the underdog here in his return fight, plus 130 to plus 152, despite being a big, big, big potential star for the UFC. And Lima's minus 167 to minus 188. Lima has that dogged pace. He is a perfectly serviceable striker in an aggressive sense. Yes, he will get cracked hard by Talbot at some point in this fight, because Talbot is very, very dangerous, and the pace and the weaponization of it by Lima does leave him open to that. And it wouldn't surprise me if he even got knocked out. Like, I'm not saying this is a safe bet, lock it in, Peyton Talbot's going to lose here. No, but it's Talbot showed, even before the Barcelos fight, because you can go back to the Nick Aguirre fight, where Aguirre, who is bottom of the basement bantamweight, was able to get some takedowns against him, despite having no striking game to set it up and no real wrestling game. Like, it was very bad. There is a definitive lack of chain wrestling in Talbot's game, at least up to date. He's very, very young, very athletic. He could patch that hole very, very quickly. But I don't trust him to at his current gym. And I don't trust him to have multi-level takedown defense in a nutshell. Like, I think he's ready for the first shot. He's ready for the first takedown, as he was against Barcelos. But he's not ready for a guy who chains it together and keeps bringing it and is a good athlete. Like, because Lima is a very solid athlete as well. Barcelos, an aging special athlete at one point. But, yeah, it was too much for him. So I got Lima by decision. This could be something else. It could be Talbot actually fixing some gaps, and it turns out to be a really, really good idea. But I don't think this was good matchmaking. That's the classic. It's like it's not that I don't think this is going to be a good fight. I think it's going to be plenty entertaining. It's just I think if you're the UFC, this is the fight you use a Chris Moutinho on, not for Malcolm Wellmaker. Because Malcolm Wellmaker and Talbot are like two of their super special dudes at 135, and you want to bring them in right. You don't want to destroy them. And like Lima is, he's the kind of guy that does that to people. Jack Hermansson versus Gregory Rodriguez. Hermansson is the underdog at plus 160 to plus 185. Rodriguez is minus 192 to minus 230. I'm going with Hermansson here because, don't get me wrong, Rodriguez is the more interesting higher ceiling fighter because he's like a good athlete, hyper aggressive, hits hard, super tough, and aggressive with his grappling, and could win this fight in the fashion that Roman Dolidze kind of beat Jack Hermansson, and just bringing chaos over and over again to Hermansson. He just doesn't really have a way of defusing it. But Hermansson's got good footwork. He's got good striking. He's not facing a southpaw, so he actually will have a jab in theory because Hermansson's issue is he doesn't jab southpaws. But Rodriguez is an orthodox fighter, so I think he will have that on the table. And kind of like a Joe Pyfer moment, honestly. Like a little bit where like you can't really... Well, I don't want to say you can't because, again, Dolidze did it. But historically, it's been very, very hard to just overwhelm Hermansson. And you usually have to come up with solid, fundamental pressure a la a Sean Strickland to get the job done. And Rodriguez is just not that. He's too unstructured and aggressive for aggressive's sake, not like a slow cooking pressure deal. Like it's he has the mindset, the aggression of a pressure fighter without like the actual techniques. So I've got Hermansson by decision, but like I do hope to be wrong because Rodriguez winning would be way more fun. And then this is the other fight that I do not like, or another fight I do not like. Hyder Emil versus Jose Delgado. Now, the reason here is that this is going to be a perfectly fun fight. Don't get me wrong. I'm looking forward to this. This could be fight of the night. This could be performance of the night. But Emil is 35 years old and like making a name for himself. Just beat Willie Gomez. He should be well above a Delgado fight. He should be getting kind of fast-tracked, a little bit like Delgado's teammate Marcus McGee, just because of that age. You don't have a lot of time. Let's boil it in there. And Delgado, he's only had the one fight in the UFC, a little bit unproven. Don't get me wrong. Has the physical tools, has some of the technical ideas, has the right gym behind him with MMA Lab. I have a lot of faith in him. But it's a fight that if he beats Hyder Emil loses so much. And I don't think he really gains all that much because I don't think Emil has the name value you're looking for. So, like, that's what I mean. It's like, I just would have done different things with both of these guys. Delgado's riding high right now. He's the favorite at minus 154 to minus 167. Hyder Emil's plus 126 to plus 133. I am taking the underdog, Hyder Emil. I might have honestly been talked into taking the underdog if it was Delgado because I like this interesting clash of styles here. Emil's is a kind of meathead style in the sense that dude comes out and he's going to put the pressure on you. He's going to put the volume on you. He's going to throw hard stuff, and it's amazing that he keeps it up for as long as he does. Like, apparently that there is 3 rounds of insane pace cardio in this man. There's nothing really terribly complex about it, but it is very, very effective. And then with Delgado, you have a guy who has not been beating the greatest competition. Even the UFC, he beat Conor Matthews. If you've been listening to my podcast for any length of time, you know that the whole deal with me and Conor Matthews, and it's not a personal thing. I've never met the man. I've never gotten to know him, but that he is one of the worst signings off of the Contender Series ever. He's a creative guy with both like counters and hard punches and good knees and good kicks, good transitional grappling as well. Like, it's all there, but he is facing a guy who is a special sort of physical that I don't think you can really prepare for, and that he has come nowhere near in the past. Whereas I think, as much as there isn't like a Jose Delgado on Hyder Emil's record anywhere necessarily, there are better fighters. There are, Fernie Garcia, who does some of the things he does, but like with way less physical ability behind it. There is William Gomes, who is a very good neutralizer and very difficult challenge that he was able to kind of just go, what if I hit you harder and work harder? And I'm a phenomenal athlete. What if I just do that? And it actually worked. I'm a little stunned that it worked, but it actually did work. So I am going to go with Hyder Emil just because there is that level of unprovenness to Delgado's level of competition. He's with a good gym. He's a good athlete. But when your record is 0-0, 2-2, 5-3, 4-6, 3-3, 4-1, 7-2 Lucas Ferreira, then you get to the Contender Series against Ernie Juarez, who, if I recall correctly, has a very, very thin record in his own way. Yeah. It's okay. It's not that bad. He's got like 2 decent wins in there, but like it's also a thin record and like all those things. And people who just got terminated by getting hit with hard shots. And then Conor Matthews. Conor Matthews is terrible, terrible. No one should be getting into the UFC, be losing a Contender Series to Francis Marshall, and having the most solid win on their record be Andrew Cruz. It just shouldn't be the case. Anyways, I am going with Hyder Emil by decision. I think Delgado is tough, but I think it's just the pace, the athleticism, the impact. It's going to be too much, and Hyder Emil is going to take this home. And then we get to another fight that I'm going to break down really, really simply. That's Vivi Araujo plus 185 to plus 210 versus Tracy Cortez minus 225 to minus 275. That could be wider. Cortez is a much higher ceiling fighter. She's a good athlete. She has good size for flyweight. She has a good clinch wrestling game, although ironically actually has a relatively poor takedown defense record. But the weird thing is, I think it really just has to do with the people she's up against. And obviously she was really shut out in her fight with Rose Namajunas, which was not good. Not good at all. But she's got a good clinch game. She's got a active striking game. She seems to be relatively tough, both on a mental and a physical level. And Araujo is somebody who needs you to either be a Karine Silva and just kind of combust, or needs you to be someone like a Andrea Lee, somebody who's just not really athletic. And Cortez has got the athleticism. She's got the volume concepts, meta striking, even if the form is not great and the power is not great and the creativity is not great and there's nothing else to write home about it, but like it's active, it's persistent, and in the clinch she should be able to handle Araujo fairly well. And yeah, I've got Cortez by decision, motor, volume, physicality. Then we have Terrence McKinney versus Vyacheslav Borsho. This is a coin flip. McKinney is the minus 163 to minus 180 favorite. If you're betting on that, don't. And Borsho's plus 130 to plus 150. If you're going to bet on this fight, bet on that. It's a true outcome fight. McKinney's going to go out and have some success early on. He's going to dominate actually pretty hard. And then he's either going to get a finish or he's going to combust. And that's like every Terrence McKinney fight. And you can hurt Borsho and he can recover. So like it's 50-50. Like, if Borshow can get past the first round, he'll start to take over the striking, and knock him out probably. But I'm going to go with McKinney by TKO. But it's honestly a coin flip. Neither is going to surprise me here. In fact, the way to surprise me with this fight would be if it goes out and it ends up being like this super conservative tactical decision. that would be the confusing thing. And then we have Nico Price versus Jacoby Smith. Jacoby Smith is the biggest favorite on the card, minus 2,500 to minus 33.33. That is ridiculous. He should be the biggest favorite on this card. Don't get me wrong, but that is ridiculous. Nico Price plus 1040 to plus 1200. In a nutshell, Price is kind of just done physically. He's not really got it anymore. There is a distinct lack of anything really to him at this point. He's kind of resorted to being a lean on in the clinch kind of guy. And yeah, he can still beat Alex Morono, but like, he got wasted by Robbie Lawler, got beat by Themba Gorimbo so bad that people are like, Themba Gorimbo was going to be a big thing, and then obviously he's not. And then like Phil Rowe, Michel Pereira, he did beat Alex Oliveira back in 2021, but like, he never had much of a good, solid technical game to begin with, and he's now 35 years old, and yeah, it's just kind of failing out on him. He could still pull out something weird and wacky. It's what he's known for, but yeah, Jacoby Smith is a very, very good wrestler, 3-time All-American, I do believe. He's got power. He's got a reasonably functional boxing game. He should go out there and kind of just crush him. But I will say, anytime you're getting up into minus 3,000s, you probably have gone too far. Jonta Diniz versus Alvin Hines. I kind of more or less summarized this. Alvin Hines is just a guy. He's tough. He's reasonably decently sized. He's got cardio for 3 rounds, which at heavyweight will win him some fights probably. He's got some variety in how he approaches things in terms of striking entries and so on. He has some ground game and some wrestling attribute, but like doesn't really seem to want to actually utilize them all that much. So he's probably going to stand and bang with Diniz quite a bit. Diniz has got a good low kick game and like some powerful strikes. And like I said, he's got a legitimate kickboxing background, and I just assume he's going to get the TKO here. And he's the minus 315 to minus 340 favorite. Hines is plus 230 to plus 270. And then we have another late notice fight here that was supposed to be Jackson McVeigh versus Cedricus Dumas. And then Dumas had legal issues again getting into the state, because why the UFC is putting up with Cedricus Dumas and trying to make him a thing, I don't know. Dude has a incredibly long list of criminal offenses that he is almost always undercharged in legal procedures against. Like that's the problem. Somebody tried to pull the we were talking about one of the particular ones and was like, well, that complaint was withdrawn. It's like, okay, either this guy is a piece of crap who does home invasions and domestic violence on the regular, or he is associated with people who are accusing him that stuff on the regular. Either way, I wouldn't deal with it for a guy who has proven nothing at middleweight. But anyways, Jackson McVeigh, very, very simply, highly aggressive, highly good clinch fighter, likes to low kick, likes to knee people in the clinch, likes to work submissions because he's 6'4", 77-inch reach. He's a big middleweight, at least in terms of height. He's quite lean, quite thin, but he is very aggressive pathologically and gets the job done. Now, granted, the level of competition is not good. It's 22-27, but Ewerts has got a similar problem where his is 29-26. Like that's the problem coming into the fights, obviously. So add on the losses for the guys that they have beaten, and I think the late notice helps out McVeigh also a little bit here because he's one size fits all. I don't think there's much of a game plan to this guy. He's going to be highly aggressive, seek the clinch, seek to beat somebody up with shots to the body, with knees, predominantly, elbows, all that kinds of stuff. He's going to try and do the same thing to everyone because he doesn't really have a B game. Whereas Ewart seems like a guy who, at least sometimes, has a plan. Now, we'll talk about Ewerts real quick. I like Ewerts. I think I'm pronouncing that right. I may not be. Ewert. There's no S. Anyways, he's a good low kicker. He's a good volume guy. He works the body nicely. He works good counters. I will say his boxing form is a little bit awkward in the sense that there's very little straight stuff. It's all kind of looping hooks, and that like leaves a lot of room for like potential exposure. And I don't have much else to say beyond that, honestly, about him. Like, it's good, but the thing is, I haven't seen him against like a consistent wrestling threat, which I'm not really sure McVeigh really counts as a persistent wrestling threat, but he is a clinch and beat you down, wear you down kind of guy. So at the end of the day, I think both of these guys could be good. I think both these guys are very unproven, and I think this is a solid booking to welcome to the UFC and a perfectly acceptable opener, which should be like action packed. So I looked at the betting odds. McVeigh is plus 124 to plus 130, minus 152 to minus 163, and I'm just going to go with the underdog. I'm going to go with the hot takes theoretically in McVeigh. He's been in camp the whole time. Eworts is taking this on short notice. I think the short notice benefits a guy who is one size fits all like McVeigh versus a guy who actually seems to have much of a game planning going on. So I'm going to go with McVeigh, but like I am not going to be surprised if either of these guys just kind of gets exposed here as not ready or possibly just not physical enough for this level of competition. But we'll see. I'm happy to give them both the chance. It's just I also do think that there may be a problem for both of them at some point down the road. So that is my predictions for this fight card. Like I said, it's a good fight card. There's a couple of things I'm nitpicking about in terms of booking, and there's a couple of fights that I'm not super stoked for, but I think it's a solid one with a lot of meaning, showcasing off a lot of like guys who could be very, very big stars going forward, such as Jacoby Smith, such as Peyton Talbot, such as Jose Delgado, such as, well, maybe not going forward in Hyder Meals' case. He's a little bit too old, but yeah. And who knows? Jackson McVeigh might be... How old is McVeigh again? 26. He's got personality on him too. I could see them pushing him a little bit. Does a Donald Trump impression? I say that because it does mean that some of his personality is stupid, but you'll definitely remember him if he gets a post fight here. We'll put it that way. So check out my social medias and links down below, or to the left, or to the right, or to the above. I don't know. Depends on where you're watching. And I'll be back after the fights. I am going to be watching this one live, so you'll get the play-by-play vis-a-vis Twitter if you follow me there.